Hallo und herzlich willkommen. Hier lernst du alles rund um das Thema Investor Relations, Fundraising und Kapitalmarkt. Mein Name ist Julia Stötzl und ich bin Gründerin und CEO von Investor Relations Beratung Unicorn. Unicorn ist auf einer Mission, Investor Relations für die nächste Generation einzuführen. Das bedeutet ganz konkret die Integration von digitalen Medien wie zum Beispiel LinkedIn, Podcast, Newsletter in die klassische Kapitalmarktarbeit. Mehr Informationen zu Unicorn, aber auch zum Podcast findest du unter unicornconsulting.com. Und jetzt wünsche ich euch viel Spaß beim Zuhören.
Super excited to have Lukas Zörner with us today in the catch-up on the deep dive of our expert talk. So for everyone who doesn't know Lukas yet, I will give a very brief introduction. So Lukas Zörner is the VP Germany of Konto, the European market leader in financial management for SMEs and freelancers, which also might be applicable to me, so we can talk about that maybe later. He was previously CPO at Penta and helped to build up the company. He also founded Mespo, an AI-driven fintech based in London, which is actually where he originally started his career as an analyst at Morgan Stanley, which is also the place that we know each other from. So thank you so much for being on the show, taking the time, and it's great to see you again.
Thank you very much for hosting me today, Julia and Caroline.
Perfect. So let's dive into the first question. So I already gave a little bit of background onto yourself, but maybe you can give us a bit more insights into what brought you here, where you are today in your career, and how you feel about your latest step in your career as you transitioned into your role at Konto.
Yes, perfect. So from my perspective, I think there's three main stations in my journey which ultimately brought me here. So I had the chance to grow up on the countryside in Germany, in a little town, very supported by my parents, went to school, very classical, and then started to study in the University of Mannheim, BWL, so basically business administration. And during this time, I already kind of realized I really like finances, I really like financing topics overall. And then after an internship at Morgan Stanley, started actually at Morgan Stanley in London, roughly around 2014. And this is something where I really realized it's super exciting. I love finance topics, everything that has to do with it. And this was more or less the second station that I had. But then at the same time, my grandfather, he was an entrepreneur. My parents are normal employees. And somehow I felt it in my fingertips that there's somehow this entrepreneur gene in me. And it somehow jumped over one generation. And so I, at one point, decided to leave Morgan Stanley and started, as you said, Mespo, the first company in London. And then started to also afterwards build up Penta from the ground up as a CPO, so very much focused on Penta. And yeah, ultimately build it up over the last couple of years. It's soon 6 years. And it ended in the exit last year, July, to Konto. But when I say ended, that's one part of the journey, but it's actually continuing from there. And I think this is something which, when we spoke with the guys from Konto, especially when I spoke with Alex, the co-founder and CEO early on, when we started to talk about the merger, there was an immediate connection, both on a personal level, but also really on a professional level. Because what we realized is that we are wanting to build the same type of business. We want to build a company that is really truly European. We want to build a company where we can work with very smart people, and we want to work at a company or build a company where the product is at the forefront to really solve the pain points for SMEs, because we've been business owners ourselves before. And that's where I said it really matches. And long story short, we ultimately kind of merged together. But the journey for me hasn't really ended. For me, it's a natural step for the next step, so to say. It's not finished yet. It's just the start. We're really growing fast as a company overall. Germany is the core market for us. And I think taking a step back, for me, that's really the right decision that we're seeing now, because I truly believe that focusing on customers, focusing on building up a good product is what I like, what I enjoy doing, and that's why I think it's the next natural step.
Super cool that it happened so naturally, and I mean, the timing was perfect, one would say. Maybe you could give our listeners a quick intro on Konto itself. What is your solution, and what are you really like bringing to the SMEs that they need these days?
Yes, absolutely. So we at Konto are the leading European business finance solution. And what we do is we simplify everything from everyday business banking and financing to topics like bookkeeping, spend management, invoice management. So everything that has to do with finance in a broader scheme, we are integrating on one platform with one login to our SME customers, because we, as I mentioned, we've been business owners ourselves, so we've seen how much of a pain it can be to run and grow a business while at the same time, I mean, you know it yourselves, how difficult it can be. And ultimately, this brought us to where we are today. We're active in 4 markets, 350,000 customers in France, Germany, Italy, and Spain. And as mentioned before, Germany is really a big focus for us right now.
Right. Super interesting. I might actually check it out because I'm also always struggling with like managing all the finance and the bookkeeping and
exactly.
so on. So I'll definitely check it out. So maybe speaking a bit more macro now. So fintech took quite a hit last year, right? As we all noted. But what macro trends are you seeing in the space at the moment?
So from the macro perspective, and that's one thing you need to kind of know about me, is I'm always positive. I really think that technology can change the world. I think there is a bright future for us ahead, especially in Europe. I think what has changed a little bit is the focus back on sustainable business models, like really making sure that you're building businesses that ultimately are strong and stable and resilient. I think this is something that is coming much, much more in the focus. And this type of longevity, resilience, this is what I think is really one of the big macro trends coming up, because ultimately it is about building a business, and a business should make more money than it spends, that is financially really healthy and ultimately robust. And when it comes a little bit to more the early stage environment that I see out there, is I truly believe that companies who have strong teams, strong products, strong unit economics will always be able to grow independent on the macro environment out there, because macro trends are really shifting and changing year on year right now, or even month on month. And I really believe that the good companies, the solid companies, will always find a way to get through. And that's why I'm, always very, very positive.
I like that way of thinking. I mean, it's way better than the one you read sometimes in the news today. But I mean, you have the perfect merger story between Penta and Konto. But what do you think for the rest? Like, do you see consolidation happening in the fintech segment in the next year or so, especially in Germany? Like, there's a lot of large incumbents coming in the market. So would you see this as a possibility? Or do you think that rather for fintechs to partner up is the better way to go?
Well, I think it's a good question. So from my perspective, what I personally don't see necessarily that the large incumbents are really entering the market in Germany. I think this is something that is always going on somehow, that the large traditional incumbents are there. But I personally do think we will see further consolidation in the markets or in the startup scene, but especially also in the fintech segment. I think as a company, you always need to really believe where do you want to go, and does consolidation make sense for you? And I think this is always, it takes two to tango. So if you want to consolidate with somebody else, well, that's a good thing. Does it also make sense for the acquirer? And I think these type of questions are really, really specific to not only the business model, but also the financing situation of a company, the future aspirations around it. And I think this is where I don't think there's a one-size-fits-all type of answer. Sometimes it's a partnership, sometimes it's a consolidation, sometimes it's being standalone. It really depends on where you want to go long-term. And I think this long-term thinking is something that, especially in fintech, is necessary. It's not an overnight success. It's years of a lot of work and believing into a better future ultimately. So I think when it comes to that, is that consolidation will happen more, but it really depends on the type of companies where this is applicable. But I do, from my perspective, I do think there will be more companies in that space, in the fintech space, that will consolidate.
Super interesting, and it's a perfect transition to the next question. So speaking of long term, as you are a very firm believer in innovation in the fintech sector, what are your big bets for the next 5 to 10 years? What can we expect as consumers from the space?
So I think there is going to be two trends. One of them, and I have to say it, is AI. I really think AI has the potential to shift a lot of new innovation into the forefront, because what we see is that we now have the new technology and platforms to get new business models off the ground faster, to be able to really rationalize a couple of topics, be more efficient, run faster, and I think AI is the enabler to do that. And I think AI has the potential to really be a game changer in the fintech industry overall. I think we're only at the beginning of seeing what it can do, but it can do, I think, even more than that, which we can't even fathom today. But I think AI, a lot of people are talking about it. I don't want to go too much into it, just to say it's a big topic for me, what I believe is going to happen. I think the second topic which is going to happen is, or which is going to be a much bigger innovation focus, is SMEs. So what I always found strange is that SMEs, almost in every European country, are the backbone of our societies, right? It's the local corner shop, it's the craftsmen or women, it's the larger companies that are producing something. So they're the backbone of our societies. A lot of jobs are being created. But when it comes to helping digitize this type of segment, not enough is happening yet. I think they're really struggling with a lot of bureaucracy, a lot of old school processes. And I think there is so much potential to help ultimately the European SMEs to really do more on that front, because I believe they deserve something better and there are better solutions out there. So I think there will be a trend to see more SME focused solutions. And especially when you look at Germany, I mean, German Mittelstand is not only a buzzword, but it's really a big topic. And what you kind of realize is they have products that are often the most innovative, forward-thinking products out there and super competitive even on a global scale. In many cases, you haven't perhaps even heard about these type of products, but they are big products that are out there. But when you look at their back office, this is what's holding them back. It really makes things more complicated. They need to spend too much time on processes and optimizations while not really looking too much anymore on the product and innovation side. And I think this is what we will see. And as one example, I was recently out there at a customer in the agriculture machinery industry, so Maschinenbauer. And what you see there, super innovative type of company, top-notch product, really strong. But when you look at the processes and financial management systems, it takes them too much time to handle, a lot of energy every month, and it's just a pain for all of them. And I think these type of companies are ripe for more innovation, and that's, I think, where fintech will play a massive role in unblocking SMEs in Europe.
Completely, yeah. I mean, you saw it was I think it's an ongoing trend in the US, and they've made like massive strides towards it. And I can totally see this happening in Europe, and if the legislations go along with it, it could totally unblock a massive potential in the market. But I mean, if I jump back to you towards Pinta, I mean, you've been there since like at the beginning. You saw it grow from scratch, basically. Is it too soon for you to say like, this was the great decision that you're happy to join forces with Konto? How do you feel about it? Like sometime down the line.
Well, I can clearly say it's not too early to tell. It was the right decision, like absolutely the right decision. Because for us, joining forces with Konto was for us the next logical step, right? It was one next logical step on the journey. Because together what we are building, and I kind of tried to allude to this earlier, is a European champion. And a European champion that provides really a financial management solution that European entrepreneurs like you need. And from my perspective, also honestly, they deserve something better. And that's why I say it was absolutely the right choice. A couple of months after merging, so by the end of last year already, we merged the teams together. So we are one team at Konto right now since already the end of last year. So 4 or 5 months after the merger, one team. And now we are basically in the process of moving the Penta customers from Penta to Konto, because Konto has its core banking system, its own license, and kind of really brings a lot of economies of scale for us. And this is also going really in the right direction. We're getting strong, good feedback. So this is now the next step. And lastly, once we now bring all of that together, at the end of the year, we will move forward in the market under one brand. So not anymore Penta, but Konto. And this type of strategy, one team, one platform, one brand, is really something that kind of from day one was the integration strategy. And when I'm now, looking back 7, 8 months later, whatever it is, it was absolutely the right decision, and it's going really in the right direction. So I'm very happy.
That's really great to hear, because I mean, I've done also a couple of M&As on various capacities, and I think one part that is always really being underestimated is this post-merger integration, right? So on paper, things might look good, but then in reality, cultures don't match up, or there's like conflicts and so on. So it's great to hear that this is actually not the case with you. So we always try to give our listener audience some really actionable tips. So what factors would you consider if you were a founder to be put in a position to decide whether you want to do a merger or an acquisition or an exit of that sort? What kind of factors would you take into consideration?
I think when you want to take topics into consideration, the most important one is, what's your end goal? Where do you want to be? What's your vision? I think it's not something that you do opportunistically. It's not something that you do just for the sake of it, because it's a complicated process. But where do you want to be at the end of your journey, so to say, the end goal for your company that you have built, or the vision that you've got? And that's for me the kind of most important question you need to ask yourself, not only, to be honest, for this topic, but for many, many other decisions you take as a founder or as an entrepreneur. It's like, where do you want to be long term? And I think this is something that one should not underestimate, because that ultimately can be very decisive around which path you want to take. For us, it was more or less building the European champion. That is something that we had ingrained from day one in our long-term vision. Having the good, strong international talent in our team and really accelerating it, taking it beyond just Germany and taking it to the next level. And that's why I say for us, the long-term vision was actually, we were able with this long-term vision, via a merger with Konto, able to do and achieve this vision much faster. And I think the same was true on the Konto side, is that we brought things together, and we always say 1 + 1 = 3 in this case, where kind of two things came together and are more valuable now than they were independently. And I think this is where we always said the rationale is not something short term. The rationale is, are we going to be faster achieving our end mission or our end vision? And the answer was yes for both sides. And I think this is why for both sides the merger made a lot of sense. And that's why I think founders, entrepreneur managers should really think about that and think, is it going to speed up my execution or my ability to reach the end goal or the end vision? And am I going to be there faster and in a better way? And if the answer is yes, well then a merger, an acquisition or an exit can be one of the options on the table.
At what point did you figure out what is your end goal and kind of vision? And did this I suppose so, it supported you when you were transforming from a scale-up, a hyper-growth company to a more established entity. But maybe somewhere along the lines, are there any tips and tricks that you would give to founders in figuring this step out?
So for us, what it was ultimately always focus on the customer. I mean, you should never lose that. And it sounds like something you see in every book and everybody talks about it. But in reality, it's the most difficult topic, because when you come from the startup to the scale-up phase, you hire a lot of people into the team. There's a lot of new topics floating around and new business opportunities. And it becomes very, very easy to lose sight of what actually matters. And that's the end customer. And I think I would make sure that while I'm in this phase, that everybody in the company must engage with customers. Because you don't build a process for the sake of building a process, or you don't build a product for the sake of building a product. You build it for an end customer, somebody who wants to use and pay for your product. And I think this obsession with customers and this really customer focus is something that a lot of companies can lose. I think we never really lost it. We really focused on making sure that the customers are there. I mean, I still jump on LinkedIn when I see people talking about Konto or Penta. I still jump into the chats directly, because I believe that's the right approach. B, I really like it. And C, I think we all need to make sure that we are there where our customers are, be open for feedback, be open for kind of ideas that they're bringing on the table. And that is not only true for founders or managers, that's true for everybody in the company, across every team. Because if you have this in mind, you really start to build processes with the end customer in mind. And that's something that, from my perspective, from what I've seen and from what I've observed, makes a massive difference at scale. And that's why I think this is really something that I would recommend for fellow entrepreneurs to kind of focus on more or less all of the time.
Super interesting. So we're already actually at the final question now, and we have talked a lot strategically, obviously, what could be an exit path, how to get to what you actually want. But now let's talk a little bit more numbers or valuations. So we have seen valuations in fintech going up and down in the last few months actually. But what do you think, how will valuations develop for specifically fintechs over time?
Okay, now getting out the crystal ball. I think, and I mentioned this early on, I'm super optimistic. Like I believe I'm a really positive optimist when it comes to our sector and when it comes to innovation in Europe as a whole, because there's so many challenges going on around the world. The world is getting more complicated day by day, and I think technology and smart people in Europe have everything that they need to really boost it and kind of push it out there. So I'm, first of all, optimistic and really, really positive for the long run. Of course, there are ups and downs in businesses. I mean, every entrepreneur knows this. There's a good week, there's a bad week, there's a good month, there's a bad month. It's reality, and I don't think you can really, you can't lie about that. That's life. And I think we're seeing the same right now in the markets. But on the flip side, and this is the positive Lukas coming back in, there is money still in the market. There is strong teams in the market. There is strong business ideas. There is a kind of reversal to big sustainable business ideas, like really good unit economics, good growth. So I think we have taken the step back to now further accelerate. And the good thing is the money is still there. And that's, I think, why I'm always super optimistic that right now, or actually yesterday, is the best time to start a business. Today is the best time to start a business, and tomorrow will be the best time to start a business. So I think this is why I'm really, really optimistic. There's so many smart people out there, and that's why I think valuations go up and down, but the long-term vision, what we just talked about, is what matters, and there I'm super bullish.
Amazing. I mean, I think you've won the award for the most optimist guest we've had till now on the show, and I love that. It's really nice to start the week with this, I have to say.
It's refreshing.
Absolutely. Well, we've actually come to the end of our episode already. We have to say thank you to you, Lukas, for bringing in this great point of view and sharing your opinions and insights.
Thank you so much for having me.
And best of luck with the future of the company as well.
Yeah.
Perfect thing. And perhaps you even become the next customer for us.
Yes, definitely. I'll check it out. I'll give you my review.
Perfekt. Thanks, Julia. Thanks, Caroline.
So, wir sind jetzt auch schon wieder am Ende des Podcasts angekommen. Ich hoffe, dir hat diese Episode gefallen. Wenn du Hilfe brauchst bei irgendwelchen Kapitalmarktthemen oder digitalen Investor Relations Themen, dann melde dich gerne unter unicornconsulting.com und buch dir einen ersten freien Consulting Call. Wir würden uns ebenfalls darüber freuen, wenn du uns auf Social Media folgst, zum Beispiel YouTube, TikTok, Instagram oder auch LinkedIn, oder wenn du einfach einen Like da lässt. Ich wünsche euch alles Gute und bis zum nächsten Mal. Eure Julia. Ciao.